This video is brought to you by FishHuntShoot.com. For more and bigger trout, go to FishHuntShoot.com. Howdy guys, Cal here. It is time for our weekly fishing report, and let's kick things off with what Wes and I have been up to over the past week. The footage you're watching right now I shot up at Rollins Lake during my annual warm water fishing trip. I try to hit Rollins Lake every July because I love topwater fishing, and Rollins Lake is home to lots of small to medium-sized spotted bass, as well as some very nice bluegill and a few crappie. And very often in July, you can get all those species to come up and grab a popper or a floating rapala or something like that. Overall, the trip was very good. I landed 30 plus fish probably, but I didn't get into any of the larger bass or any of the really large panfish, and I attribute that to a recent temperature drop. I learned this years ago from a buddy, Randy Pringle, the fishing instructor guide service down in the California Delta. And Randy shared with me, even in the middle of summer, if you get a temperature drop, despite the fact that the water remains, right in the fish's comfort zone, you're always going to get a decline in fish activity when you get that temperature drop, and we're talking air temperature. The fish are going to be less willing to strike on top, and they're going to be less willing to chase. And that's absolutely what I saw yesterday. In fact, I marked a lot of fish, which turned out to be spotted bass, holding anywhere from 10 to about 20 feet deep. And I got some of those fish using a very interesting method. Once again, guys, flies, flies, flies. If you're not fishing flies with your gear, with your spinning gear, with your trolling gear, you're not catching as many fish as you could. And that goes, just as much for trout as it does for bass, as it does for panfish. Here's what I did. I really like working my popper. I love twitching rapalas. So that was my number one presentation. I took a small brown fly, an impressionistic fly I use up in the Sierras to imitate dragonfly nymphs, small crayfish, whatever. It looks like a lot of things, but nothing specifically. I put it on a spinning rod, I put on a split shot to get it down, and I simply hung it over the side of the kayak about 10 feet down. When I'd pedal forward, the fly would rise. When I stopped, the fly would drop. When I wiggled the kayak, the fly would wiggle, and I picked up more than a half dozen fish on that very passive fly presentation. I would hear the rod rattle, I would look over, it would be doubled over, and I'd either have on a bass or a bluegill. So again, flies, 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 flat out catch fish. Now, when I was up at Rollins chasing bluegill and stuff, actually a few days before that, Wes went up to the high country. He went up to Bear River Reservoir, and he nailed a couple really big rainbows. Both of them were over 6 pounds, and he got a bunch of other fish too. I'm not going to give away any of the details about that because Wes made a feature-length video, which is going to air here on the channel on Sunday morning around 9 o'clock. Check it out. It is epic. Wes is screaming like a little girl. He is excited as anyone would be with a couple 6-pound trout on the end of your line. It's a great video. So tune into that on Sunday morning. Moving forward, before we get into fishing reports around the state, I want to give you a little update about the store. You're seeing a bunch of fly kits on the screen right now. That's because I spent yesterday afternoon filling up hundreds of fly kits. We were sold out in several categories, but we're not sold out anymore. If you are interested in getting some flies for the fall fishing season, get on over to FishHuntShoot.com. We've got what you need. We got what you're looking for, and the same goes for spoons. We just got our second color of crippled minnow trolling spoons. They're actually trolling and casting spoons. They are the most versatile rolling bait in the world, bar none. Check them out. We have the original holographic colors, and we've added a full line of UV Pro colors. They are fish killers. You've seen it here on the channel. You're seeing some of that footage here on the screen that I shot last week up at Jackson Meadows Reservoir. The crippled minnow is the real deal. I'm almost sold out of ghost minnow spoons, and I don't know when I'll be getting more. I started off with 500 kits of those, and I just rigged up the last few I had. in my storeroom just the other night. So we are running out of those. That is a great slow trolling large profile spoon. And of course you'll find all our other spoons, Trigger Spoon Juniors, Trigger Spoon Micros, Magnum Trigger Spoons, and the tried and true Trigger Spoon itself. So if you're looking for gear, get on over to fishhuntshoot.com. Fishing reports are coming, I swear they are, but I wanted to celebrate some recent catches from some of our viewers, and I have a piece of paper here because I am going to read these, but check out these pictures, guys. We had Ed C. Ed went up to Lake Pardee. I don't know if you guys know it, but Lake Pardee holds some epic browns. They're hard to catch, but they are there. Ed was using my fishing method: start out fast and aggressive and then slow down, work the marks that you find, and continue slowing down until you hook up. Well, Ed found some fish. He slowed down, he put on a cripple lure around 2 miles an hour, and he scored this massive 9.2 pound brown, which he released. Awesome fish, good for you, Ed. Congratulations, that is a brown trout of a lifetime, especially at Pardee, where they are very, very hard to catch. That water out there is super clear. John M. had a great time up at Whiskeytown kokanee fishing. He was mixing it up, but he nailed some kokanee on my willow leaf blades, and he did very well. They took home some fish to eat, and he was very happy. Chris B went up to French Meadows Reservoir. He was pulling an orange Trigger Junior, and he got after the trout up there using one of my iconic yellow lead core rods and the three pieces of lead core hybrid rig that I advocate using here on the channel. Let's round things out with Michael F. Michael was up in Washington State fishing at Twin Lakes. He landed a 5-pound rainbow, actually 4.81 pounds. That's close enough to 5 for me. He was using a turbo flasher teamed with one of our broken back trolling flies, and he was pulling that on one of my iconic yellow lead core rods. So that's it for viewers this week. We got a lot of guys out there in the field fishing our gear, and they are catching a lot of fish. So speaking of fish, I'm going to kick this off with 3 lakes here in California, 1 up north, 2 down south. Let's start with Shasta. The fishing at Shasta is very, very good, and the pressure is very, very light. At least the fishing pressure is very light. I talked to my buddy Robert Hauer. He is out on the water at the lake every day, and he's doing very well. He's catching a mix of kings, rainbows, brown trout, and he reports seeing very few other trollers. He's working the water column. He's down there in 60, 70, 80 feet of water pulling shad pattern lures, and it's working for him. You know, it's the same as any other lake. Find the fish, find the depth, put the forage that they're eating in front of them, or an imitation of that forage. In this case, they are feeding on shad. Robert is pulling shad imitations, and the pictures speak for themselves. He is smacking some very nice fish. Him and his fishing partner, Patty, they're out there almost every day, and they're off the water early because, guess what? It's sizzling hot at Lake Shasta, and about the time Robert's getting off at 9 or 10 in the morning, out come the skiers, and they don't really scare the fish, but they are kind of crazy, a lot of wakes and stuff like that. Moving down the state, Don Pedro Reservoir, it's combo action, rainbows, kokanee, and kings. Monty Smith is slapping them around down there. The action is very good. Monty taught me how to fish that lake years ago, and what he likes to do in the dead of summer, and you can do the very same thing, you can target the kings, the cokes, and the rainbows all at the same time. The kings will be deepest, the kokanee will be in the middle, and the rainbows will be up in the top of the biomass. And if you peg your speed at 1.5, you could pull and you got a fishing partner, you could pull a couple kokanee baits at about 60 feet. You can roll a shad down deep for the kings, and you could pull a trout bait, and maybe a worm and blade or a trolling fly, something that you can work slowly, a grub, one of my signature series trolling grubs. You can work that above the level of the kokanee, and you will catch all 3 species. I would run 2 rods if you're fishing with a partner. I would run 2 kokanee rods because they're the best eating fish. I would run a shad down deep for a king because they fight hard, and they are just flat out fun to catch. And of course, rainbows, they fight hard too. So run a rainbow bait up top somewhere in that 30 to 50 foot range and pick off a few rainbows as well. You're going to catch some rainbows on your kokanee gear, and you might even catch a rainbow down there deep rolling that shad. But that's a great way to spread your baits at Don Pedro, and the bite is on at Don Pedro. At New Melones, the fish are running bigger. The numbers are smaller, but the fish are running bigger. Some guys are getting browns out there. A lot of nice rainbows are showing, and some nice kokanee are showing. Standard stuff for the browns and rainbows. Shad pattern lures for the kokanee, you know. Bring the whole menu. Orange spinners, pink tubes, minnow tubes. Bring that corn, and you will get into some very nice kokanee. That's about it for the valley reservoirs. There's other spots that are still kicking out fish. Obviously, Pardee's kicking out fish. Comanche's still kicking out fish. Even Collins Lake is still kicking out trout. But if you're not going to one of the 3 big reservoirs I mentioned, I would advise you to go to the high mountains. Every high mountain lake I hear about is booting out fish, whether it's Jackson Meadows, Bear Valley Reservoir. Brian Ricucci is on some very nice trout at Elmonor, but that's no surprise. He's always on very nice trout at Elmonor. The Elmonor bite has slowed down a bit, but obviously, you know, look at these pictures. There are still trout to be caught up there. So if you just want to have some fun, get away from the heat, beat the heat, go up to the high mountains, get off the beaten path if you can, and you're going to find a lot of receptive rainbows and some receptive browns. That's it for this week. I will catch you next time right here on Fish Hunt Shoot Productions on YouTube. Wes's video will be up Sunday, and we got a lot of hard-hitting content coming up in the next week or so. I'm Kel Kellogg. You have a great day. Stay safe out there. And if you're looking for gear, one more time, check it out. You know where to go. FishHuntShoot.com. Thanks for all the support, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Thank you, guys.